and welcome back to Bengal Bites, real, raw, unfiltered talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and the NFL. I'm your host, Derek. This is episode 3, Preseason Week 2 Recap, the game against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. This is just a reminder, I am not sponsored by anything or anyone. I am not affiliated with the Bengals franchise. This is just honest analysis and fact-based updates based on the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you're a hardcore Cincinnati Bengals lover and podcast lover, this is the place for you. If you're new to the podcast, check out episode 0, the pilot, where I explain who I am, why I'm making this podcast, what it's all about. Basically, I'm a guy who grew up loving the NFL, played football in high school and college, and also loved the Cincinnati Bengals, for better or worse. So I wanted to make a podcast to bring all the fans of the Bengals from near and far together so we could all love the Bengals together. Even if you happen to be outside the Cincinnati area, if you love the Bengals, which I hope you do, this podcast is for you. If you're completely new to the sport of American football, check out episode 1, the 2023 preseason primer, where I explained how American football works, who are the Cincinnati Bengals, who everybody is, why you should care, and I tried to do it all while assuming no prior knowledge from you, the listener. So if you know anyone who's been looking to get into football, but they don't know how it works or they need an explanation, they can go check that out. On our last episode, episode 2, we did a complete breakdown of preseason game 1 with the Green Bay Packers. And we also mentioned we got our first signs of Joe Burrow running and throwing the football back from his calf strain. In this episode, we're going to hit a few news headlines. We're going to talk about the things we were watching going into the second preseason game, and we're going to do a complete, comprehensive breakdown of the preseason game 2 with the Atlanta Falcons. Our top news story was Joe Mixon was declared not guilty of misdemeanor aggravated menacing. There was a woman who had accused him of pointing a gun at her in a road rage incident, but there was no video of him pointing a gun at her. There's no pictures or anything. There was no witnesses. There's no evidence to support this claim. So it's pretty much just hearsay, one person's word against another person's. The judge said in the ruling that the district attorney didn't really have enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Joe Mixon was guilty. Basically, they didn't call any witnesses. There really didn't seem like any concrete evidence against Joe Mixon. I think the lesson is don't put yourself in that situation. They did see 2 cars pulled up next to each other, so we can assume that if these 2 people were talking to each other, it wasn't a nice conversation. If it was something about somebody cut somebody else off or whatever, you can assume it wasn't a pleasant conversation. So lesson to everybody out there, don't get involved in road rage. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. Nothing good is going to happen. I've never heard any story about road rage where somebody was like, oh, this person cut me off, so I followed him, and then 5 years later, here we are happily married. I couldn't believe it. I've never heard it. Has anybody, please write in at Bengal Bites on X and Twitter. Tell me if you've got a positive road rage story. I'd be surprised because I don't think there is one. So just don't do it. That's the moral of the story. After this, the Bengals put out a statement saying how much they support Joe Mixon and how he has been a valuable member of the team for so many years. Although, if we remember, Joe Mixon had to take a pay cut from about $10.5 million to about $6 million this year, a few weeks ago. So obviously the team doesn't think he's quite as valuable as he was, but still very valuable nonetheless. In other news about the team, we got a report from the Cincinnati Enquirer that rookie wide receiver Charlie Jones was battling a possible torn labrum in his left shoulder. We didn't get any clarification from the team, as we would expect. They're never going to clarify any injuries when they don't have to. It's not an official game, so there's no injury designations, and he's still active. He's been active in both preseason games, Charlie Jones. We did see him go down hard, making a catch in practice and training camp. So this kind of lines up. He was held out at least 1 or 2 practices within the last week. We saw him on, I think it was at Trags on Twitter, It was in a 7-on-7 drill. Charlie Jones was going deep down the left sideline, and he caught the ball, but he fell and hit his shoulder on the ground as he was making the catch and came up holding his shoulder, and they carted him off for the day. Back when I was playing, our coaches would always harp on us, stay up, stay up, stay up constantly. They never wanted anybody to hit the ground. Bad things happen when people hit the ground because you could roll up on somebody else's legs and take out their ankles or take out their knees from behind, or like what happened in Charlie Jones's case, you could get labrum injuries or separated shoulder, dislocated shoulder. All kinds of different injuries can happen if you hit the ground. Shoulder injuries, head injuries. So it's just better to stay up. We also saw some more movement in the running back market around the NFL after we saw Dalvin Cook sign with the Jets. Ezekiel Elliott signed with the New England Patriots for one-year deal up to $6 million. It seems more likely to be a $3 million base or somewhere around there, but obviously not the money Zeke was looking for when he entered free agency. After the preseason game, we were concerned about linebacker number 49, Joe Bocci, who looked like he had a chest injury in preseason game 1. Luckily, he was all clear for game 2, so nothing serious with him. He's ready to go. We were also looking for Myles Murphy to have a big game in game 2, but unfortunately, Myles came down sick on Wednesday and missed practice and wasn't able to travel to Atlanta with the team for the game, which is really unfortunate because Myles' dad is a longtime Falcons season ticket holder, so he was going to have a lot of family in the stands. He's from the area. I'm sure all of his family and friends were excited to see him play, so it really was too bad that he got sick and couldn't even go to the game. Outside of that, we were looking to see if Myles could improve on his performance from week 1. Defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo gave an interview to the Dayton Daily News, and he talked about how it was the rookies getting the feel of the game in their first NFL action, which is totally understandable. But he also mentioned that he would like to see a little bit of a, quote, different gear from Myles Murphy in the second game. So that's something we were all looking for. And it's going to come over time. You can't expect these rookies in their first NFL games ever to just come out blazing. Like, I know Joseph Ossai went crazy in that Tampa Bay preseason game against Tom Brady where he got a sack in his first NFL action, but that's not going to be the case for the majority of rookies. We need to give them a little bit of time, and the same is going to be with Myles Murphy. It's just too bad he got sick. We'll have to wait until at least next week to see that different gear from Myles Murphy. Along those same lines, Joe Burrow and all the other injured players did not make the trip to Atlanta, so we didn't see Joe Burrow standing on the sidelines, which is good. We just wanted him to stay at home, get rested, get rehab, do whatever he needs to do to get ready to play, because these backup quarterbacks are really not giving us a lot of confidence. We really need Joe Burrow to come back, and also we need to sign Joe Burrow to that contract, Mike Brown. Maybe Joe Burrow would be coming back sooner if he had that contract. We don't know, but I would feel a lot more secure if Joe Burrow had that security in his contract. Mike Brown, I'm looking at you. Okay, that's about all we had for news. Now let's just put some context back into the preseason. Like we said, the regular season and the whole NFL season is kind of like a marathon. And the starting gun for this marathon is week 1 of the regular season, meaning we're kind of still in the warm-up area. The starting gun hasn't even gone off here. We're still like eating a banana and kind of like doing some stretches right now. So we need to just take it easy. Don't pull any muscles in the warm-up. That's the worst thing that could happen if the start of a marathon, you pulled a muscle at the beginning in the warm-up, or you're getting like a cramp from eating too many bananas. So like, take it easy. Let's just ease into this thing nice and slow. We're not trying to impress anybody in the warm-up area. At this point, we have come out of training camp, and it's not just practice against the other teams or practice in these coordinated dual practices, but now it's actually live tackling, live film, and now the coaches and players have gotten a chance to evaluate the performances a little bit more and see who's been consistently making plays and who hasn't. And anybody who wasn't happy with their performance in game 1 knows that they really need to step it up in these next 2 games, or else their job is going to be in jeopardy. as I said, we want to set our expectations appropriately for all the rookies. This is still very earlier in their careers. It's still kind of brand new to them. They're still getting the hang of just going through the whole process, and they can't really go full speed yet. So give them a little bit of time. Some of the older guys we should expect more from, since some of these guys have played in like playoff games, so they should be on top of their game from the beginning. Going into the game, we knew from multiple different defensive players that the starting defense was going to play just the first series, and that's it. That could be good or bad. You obviously don't want to risk anybody getting injured, but it would be nice to get the whole defense out there as a complete unit, just to go through the process, just to get some in-game reps. Okay, this is how we're going to line up. This is how we're going to make the calls on the field against a real opponent. It's kind of a dual-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want to see your starters play, but not too much. So it's like, well, if they go 3 and out, is that really enough of them? Or would you rather the drive continue? But it's like, well, it's the defense, so you want them to stop them early. So it's kind of a weird thing. If you're seeing more of your defense, it's not necessarily a great thing. So it would be better to not see the defense that much. We didn't get any word on if any offensive starters were going to play, but we know Burrow, Chase, Higgins, not likely. All right, now let's get into the preseason Game 2 recap. Cincinnati Bengals at Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons received the opening kickoff and immediately got a holding penalty. Then on the first play from scrimmage, Atlanta's right guard, number 63, Chris Lindstrom, got a holding penalty. So starting off the game with 2 holding penalties for the Falcons, and this was a harbinger of things to come. There was a lot of penalties in this game. Really sloppy game. Quickly, let's go through that Cincinnati starting defense we talked about. Number 98 at nose tackle, the man, the myth, the legend, DJ Reader. Number 92, BJ Hill on his side at the interior. On the ends, we have number 94, Sam Hubbard, the local legend. Number 97, Trey Hendrickson, the Pro Bowler who just got a contract extension in the offseason. We have the 2 middle linebackers, number 55, Logan Wilson, and number 57, Jermaine Pratt. Both of those guys also signed contract extensions in the offseason, so we're going to have a tandem at linebacker for years to come. At slot cornerback, number 21, Mike Hilton. Mike is primarily the one on the field. If he's not, then it would have been Akeem Davis-Gaither, probably number 59, the other outside linebacker. So it kind of depends if they want to go what's called nickel with 5 defensive backs and 2 linebackers, or more of a 4-3, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs. They started off nickel with Mike Hilton, so he's kind of the slot corner, or the nickel back it's called. On the outside, we had number 20, DJ Turner, the rookie from Michigan, and number 29, Cam Taylor-Britt, second-year corner out of Nebraska. At free safety, number 23, Dax Hill, and number 33, Nick Scott, was the strong safety we signed from the Los Angeles Rams in the offseason. We heard Cincinnati's starting D was only going to play 1 series, but this was a really long series. It ended up being officially 15 plays, not counting penalties, but there's 3 penalties, so it was really 18 plays that the defense was on the field, and they ended up subbing people in by the end of the drive anyway. So by the end of this drive, most of the starters on the defensive line had already subbed out already, like DJ Reader, BJ Hill, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, all those guys off the field. So that was the starting lineup. So let's get back to the game. After that holding penalty on Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, he completes 2 passes, picks up a first down, including one that went to Kyle Pitts, which was kind of a one-handed. Kyle Pitts, number 5 for the Falcons, reached back with his right hand, grabbed it. Similar to the one Andre Yo-See-Vosh dropped last week. We'll get into the Yo-See-Vosh pronunciation corner in a minute. But that's why Kyle Pitts was a top 5 pick. He was drafted even over Jamar Chase because he's huge and he can make catches like that. Then we saw Atlanta's running back, number 7, Bijan Robinson, their first-round pick, and he was the top running back taken in the draft at number 8 overall. He has good vision on his first carry. He finds a cutback lane, and he's able to avoid number 33, Nick Scott's tackle. Nick Scott comes in from his strong safety position to fill, but at the last second, he just kind of ducks his head before he makes the tackle. That gives Bijan the opportunity to sidestep to the left out of the way so that Nick Scott just goes right past him. Dax Hill is able to come up and make the tackle, but after a 12-yard gain. On the next play, we see a nice tackle from number 29, Cam Taylor-Britt at cornerback. He comes up, fills the hole, stops Bijan Robinson for a short gain, maybe 4 yards. And it could have been a bigger gain if Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't come up and make the tackle right there. Bijan had run through the initial arm tackle of number 55, Logan Wilson, at the initial line of scrimmage. So it looked like he was going to be off to the races if Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't make that tackle. But on the next play, 2nd and 6 from the Atlanta 43, Cam Taylor-Britt can't make the tackle on Atlanta receiver Mac Hollins on the left sideline. Cam kind of comes in. He almost tries to do like a running clothesline on Mac Hollins. And so Mac Hollins just like ducks underneath it and runs up the sideline for a first down. At some point in this drive, I saw BJ Hill go down and grab his leg. And I was like, oh no, BJ Hill is hurt. He was like grabbing at his knee or his ankle. I couldn't tell what was going on, but luckily it was just a little minor, maybe he got rolled up on or something. He got up and walked it off, so no big deal. But I was super nervous, like, oh no, BJ Hill, don't be hurt. I don't want any of the starting guys to get injured at all. Everybody just stay healthy. That's all we need. 3rd and 12 at the Cincinnati 37, Desmond Ridder throws a deep pass to number 5, Drake London for the Falcons. He goes up over top of DJ Turner, pretty much mosses him. It wasn't really offensive pass interference. It was just a good job of extending his arms out and getting separation away from DJ Turner, the Bengals cornerback, so that he didn't fully extend his arms out to make it obviously offensive pass interference. Jamar Chase got called for that a couple times last year where he just blatantly pushed off on the guy. Drake London was a little bit more subtle with his push off to be able to catch the ball without getting called for OPI. DJ Turner was in good position on that play. He just wasn't quite able to get a hand on the ball as it was coming in. I mean, Drake London is, I don't know what, like 6'4", 6'5". So he's pretty lanky. I'm really hoping Chidobe Awuzie, number 22, their normal starting cornerback on the right side from last couple seasons, can come back sooner rather than later. I know Coach Anarumo has talked about how he does not prefer to play rookie cornerbacks. Even Xavier Howard, when Coach Anarumo was the defensive backs coach for the Miami Dolphins, and also Zach Taylor was coaching for the Miami Dolphins on the offensive side, Coach Anarumo said that even a Pro Bowler like Xavier Howard didn't play in his rookie season because he doesn't want to break their confidence too early. He says that if a guy isn't ready and you put him in and he gives up a big touchdown or gives up a big play, it might hurt his confidence and he won't be able to recover. So Coach Lou prefers to let the rookies sit a few games, let them get their feet wet. And we saw that with Cam Taylor-Britt last year. His rookie season, he was on IR for the first 6 weeks, but when he came in, he basically had to fill in for Cheeto, and his first couple of games were kind of rough. He was getting his feet wet, and you worried, was his confidence going to be broken? But by the time he got to the playoffs, he showed that his confidence was not shaken at all. For some reason, Zach Taylor decided to challenge the Drake London catch on the sideline and lost. I don't know what he saw that made him want to challenge that. It was kind of a close play, but he got his knee inbounds and the catch was good. So Cincinnati gets charged with their first time out there. 1st and 10, Atlanta has the ball at Cincinnati 16. Bijan Robinson catches a pass on the left side from Des Ridder, kind of like the Kyle Pitts pass where it was a one-handed pass. He had to catch it behind him. So Ritter's ball placement is a little bit off on some of his passes. He's getting it there and it's going in the right place and mostly on time, but you don't want your guys to have to make one-handed catches behind their body all the time. You should just hit him in the face with the ball. So far on this drive, just from a casual observer perspective, the Falcons' offensive weapons are looking very scary this year. The NFC South is going to be in trouble if the Falcons' offensive line can stay healthy and not constantly commit holding penalties and ball starts every single play. But as far as like skill positions, the Falcons are covered. Falcons have it first and goal. Pass over the middle to Kaderil Hodge is complete, but he gets his ankles twisted up on the tackle with Mike Hilton, and he limps off the field. Number 12 for the Falcons, he limps off the field. He's in obvious pain on the sideline, clutching his ankle on the bench, and that's worst case scenario. That's what we don't want to see out of anybody, and it's definitely what we don't want to see on anybody on the Bengals. So I'm thinking, again, get this team, get the defense, starters, anybody who's important off the field as soon as possible. I don't care. Third and goal at the Cincinnati 6. Falcons have the ball. Like a couple passes already on this drive, Atlanta's quarterback Des Ridder throws kind of late and behind the receiver Scotty Miller. That gives Bengals cornerback Mike Hilton, number 21, the chance to come over and break it up, pop the ball up into the air. Deflected it. Joseph Ossai was interesting. Joseph Ossai lined up on the right defensive end, and then at the snap, he rotated back into kind of a middle linebacker spy position. So he wasn't rushing up the field, and he wasn't containing like for run defense. He was playing like middle linebacker, almost like if you remember 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game when Sam Hubbard was spying on Patrick Mahomes when they were down in the goal line. And then he eventually came up and made the sack and Mahomes fumbled. But I think Ossai was kind of playing a similar role, or whatever defense Lou Anarumo calls that, down near the goal line where the defensive end comes up and spies on the quarterback. That's what they were doing. But because Ossai was in that spy technique, he was in the perfect position to see the ball pop up in the air and come over and make the interception. And the ball, it felt like it hung up in the air forever. And when you're in that kind of situation, you get nervous because it's almost like it's too easy. It's like, okay, you've got too much time to think about it. You're like, oh, what am I going to do after I catch the ball? I'm going to run and score a touchdown and celebrate with all my friends. But the hardest part is just catching that ball. And luckily, he caught it, and he was able to return it a few yards. He got tackled by Desmond Ridder, and, I mean, that's okay for Desmond Ridder. I would prefer that he didn't tackle with his arms and with his hands. He literally went in and tried to wrap up with his hands on Joseph Ossai, which is a good way to get your fingers broken and your wrists broken. Andy Dalton learned that in 2015 when he tried to go in there, make a tackle on an interception, and then broke his thumb. And then we had A.J. McCarron starting in the playoff game. So just for Desmond Ridder's sake, I hope he doesn't make tackles like that anymore. Just try to go and roll into him, cut their knees out or something, Des Ridder. So the Bengals get the ball with 5 minutes left to start the first quarter, still 0-0. The starting offensive line to come out is left tackle, number 79, Jackson Carman, left guard, number 61, Cody Ford, center, number 74, Max Sharping, right guard, number 63, Trey Hill, and right tackle, number 73, Jonah Williams. To start at QB, we had number 19, Trevor Siemian. Number 25, Chris Evans got the start at running back. Number 89, Drew Sample started at tight end. Number 80, Andre Yo-See-Vosh. Say it with me. Yo-See-Vosh. Yo-See-Vosh. I know I was 50-50 on getting the pronunciation correct last episode, so I'm going to try very hard. Yo-See-Vosh. It's not that hard. Okay. We also had number 15, Charlie Jones, and number 16, Trenton Irwin. Trenton Taylor didn't get the start, and we actually saw Charlie Jones returning punts initially, so they kind of swapped roles with Charlie Jones and Trent Taylor, and also Trevor Siemian and Jake Browning. Jake Browning got the start at quarterback last week. Trevor Siemian got the start this week. On the drive, we saw number 89, tight end Drew Sample, caught a pass out of the flat. He kind of did a delayed release where he blocked for half a second and then went out into the flat, went for 14 yards and a first down. That was probably, honestly, one of the longest catches of Drew Sample's career. He is not known as a burner or a big-time deep threat. He was pretty excited about getting 14 yards, and who can blame him? He just came back from a major injury last year. He tore his ACL against the Cowboys, where it was kind of really an ugly injury where he got twisted down and his knee kind of buckled underneath him. It was really kind of one of those ugly injuries to watch. So I'm glad to see Drew Sample back out there, catching passes, running around. Good for him. We saw number 61, Cody Ford, the left guard, get a false start penalty. Cody Ford kind of reminds me a little bit of Quentin Spain, Big Q, if you remind him from a couple of seasons ago. Just a big bowling ball kind of guy. He's obviously not quick or fast, but he probably won't get bull rushed and just completely run over, you hope, just because he is so big. Also on this drive, the Falcons committed 2 defensive holding penalties in a row, so that was just gifting the Bengals first downs all the way down the field. Bengals eventually got it to 3rd and 6 at the Falcons' 27. Slant pass to the left to number 80, Yo-See-Vosh, comes up just a bit short. He caught it, and he saw the safety, who happened to be Jessie Bates III, the former Bengals safety who left in free agency this offseason. But Jessie Bates was coming up to make the tackle on Yo-See-Vosh, and instead of putting his shoulder down and meeting Jessie right at that point of contact and trying to overpower him, basically, he tried to avoid the contact, and he ended up giving up a little bit of yardage and going backwards away from the first down. And if he had just gone forward, I think he could have got the first down. Because he gave up that ground, Jessie was able to make the tackle and stop him short of the first. I think if Andre had just taken his right foot, planted it in the ground, and continued upfield, he could have gotten the yardage that he needed. I think he was trying to make a play similar to when he broke it across the field and broke the tackle, but Jessie Bates is going to be better than those guys he was playing against last week. And I hate to conjure up bad memories, but this play really kind of reminded me of the T. Higgins catch against Damar Hamlin of the Bills last year, when T basically caught a slant pass over the middle, and then he put his foot in the ground and immediately drove his shoulder upfield into Damar Hamlin. It wasn't exactly the same because Damar Hamlin had less momentum going down to meet him. He was kind of more just standing up. But still, if you're a big body receiver like Andre or like T, you got to use your physicality to overpower these guys, not try to be so finesse and get away from them. Just put your shoulder down and drive through them. You don't always have to be the one taking the hits. You can dish out some of the hits too. That was the end of the first quarter. After the Bengals didn't pick up the first down on 3rd and 6, they go for it on 4th and 2 at the Atlanta 23. Trevor Siemian tries to throw a fade to Trenton Irwin in the right corner of the end zone. It looks like a good pass. It looks like Siemian threw it pretty much exactly where you want to throw it, which is right at the pylon. When Irwin went up to catch the ball, he didn't get any elevation. It looked like he had no ups. It looked like he pretty much just fell backwards instead of jumping up. And so if you look at the replay, the defensive back is clearly just tackling Trenton Irwin and holding him, but there's no call from the referee. I don't know why they didn't call it, but he doesn't get the call. He just gets tackled. It looks like he's maybe falling over if you look at it real quick, but he clearly gets tackled. That's a case where Trenton Irwin has to know that guy's going to try to grab him. And so, like I said with Drake London, where you have to make a little bit of space, Trenton Irwin has to anticipate that guy is going to try to grab him, and he has to kind of push off and make sure that that guy isn't able to grab him before he can jump. It's a tough play for Irwin to make, but I thought the protection was good. The pass was good from Siemian. Just a bad call. So Atlanta gets the ball back after the turnover on downs by the Bengals, and Desmond Ridder is replaced by number 4 at quarterback Taylor Heineke, and he shows some good pocket presence to avoid a couple of sacks from the Bengals defensive line. The drive eventually ends in a punt to Charlie Jones, number 15. He gets an 11-yard punt return, but it's holding on number 30, Chase Brown. So Charlie Jones finally gets a decent return and then gets called back for holding. Bengals get the ball 1st and 10 at their own 8-yard line. Trevor Siemian throws a pass deep left to Kwame Lassiter II, number 18, and it is called incomplete. It looked to me like he got 2 feet, tapped both toes, and had control of the ball, so I don't know why they called it incomplete. Zach Taylor again loses the challenge. I agreed with the second challenge more than the first challenge. I didn't really see why he challenged the first play with Drake London. I agreed with him on the second one, but unfortunately he loses this one and they lose their second timeout. I guess, like they say, the players and everybody is getting used to the preseason. Maybe Zach Taylor is trying to feel out what he can get away with in his in-game challenges. 3rd and 10 at Cincinnati's 8. Jackson Carman, left tackle, gets beat almost immediately off the end by the defensive end, number 51 for the Falcons. Siemian sees the pressure off the edge, and he has to step up and throw it a little bit earlier than he wanted to. Jackson Carman, number 79 for the Bengals, was able to recover and push the defender out of the way, so he didn't get a hit on Trevor Siemian, the quarterback. But it still made Siemian move off of his landmark, they'd say. So it's not where he wants to be when he wants to be there. He wants to be at a certain position or a certain depth at the field at a certain time so he can hit his back foot and throw the ball on time, on rhythm, when the receiver is going to be open. It kind of ruined the timing when you have to run around and escape these guys and then try to throw, so it gets all out of sync. It's about this time I'm realizing why Jackson Carman is wearing those arm pads on his forearms I talked about last week. It's because the defensive ends are just slapping his forearms, just chopping Jackson Carman's arms down right from the start. So that's why Jackson Carman is probably getting beat up on his forearms, that he needs all these padding. He needs to just get better, like get in the jiu-jitsu or whatever the MMA he needs to do to get his arm speed up, because he's obviously getting his hands beat up, knocked down. It's not working for him. Also, Jackson Carman was playing right tackle last week. Now he's playing left tackle this week, which is more of his natural position. And he was putting some bad tape out on right tackle last week so that nobody would even be interested in trading for him. I think if the Bengals could do it all over, I think if the Bengals could, they would trade Jackson Carman and just get anything back for him. Just anything, please. Somebody give us like a 6th-round pick, something. So I think they're thinking, okay, his natural position that he played all the way through high school and college was left tackle. So let's put him at what he's most comfortable with, help himself be comfortable, maybe put some good tape out there. Maybe we can get something. This is my own investing advice. Not that I'm a licensed financial advisor, but if you've got some kind of distressed asset and you think it's going to go to zero, but you can get 25 cents on the dollar, get that 25 cents. Don't let it just go to nothing. So that's what they're thinking with Jackson Carman. They're like, this guy is about to go to zeros. Can we get anything for this guy? Put him out there at left tackle and maybe he'll look competent and somebody will give us something. Atlanta gets the ball back after the Bengals punt. First play, Joseph Asai, number 58 for the Bengals, blows past the Falcons' offensive line, sacks Heineke, the quarterback. No chance to get away. That's the kind of play we want to see out of Joseph Asai, the former 3rd-round pick out of Texas, who, as I mentioned, flashed in his first preseason game and then got injured. He hurt his knee and his wrist in the same game. He was out for the season, so that was unfortunate. But now he's back. 2nd and 7 at the Cincinnati 43 after an Atlanta first down. Cincinnati linebacker number 51, Marcus Bailey, almost tips the pass from Heineke to himself and gets the interception, but he drops it. Bailey was actually close to getting a couple interceptions, but he didn't catch either one, just out of his grasp. If you remember back to Marcus Bailey's days of college, he made a big interception against Ohio State to pretty much win the game for the Boilermakers. Later in the drive, 3rd and 4 at Cincinnati's 23, Heineke throws deep right to Scotty Miller. It's incomplete. It's way out of bounds. Then Jalen Davis starts waving. It's out of bounds. And then, for some reason, Jordan Battle comes in and starts waving in Scotty Miller's face about how it's out of bounds, even though Jordan Battle wasn't even involved in the play at all. So he got a taunting penalty. So instead of getting off the field, that gives the Falcons a new set of downs. That's a really, what you call a rookie mistake by Jordan Battle. So I'm glad this wasn't a regular season game. I'm sure when he got off the field, the coaches let him have it, and when he gets in the locker room and in the meeting rooms later this week, he's going to hear about it. That was not a smart play at all. If you've got the offense stopped on third down, you can't come in and then be doing stupid, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties in people's faces. I will only allow that type of taunting penalty if you are Ray Maluga and you're playing against the Cleveland Browns in Week 15 in Johnny Manziel's first start, and you're doing the money signs in his face. That was beautiful. I love that game, maybe more than any other Bengals game of all time. Just the fact that they embarrassed Johnny Manziel. I mean, he really did it to himself, honestly. It was his own fault, but still, it was just so sweet. Oh, it was great. In Cleveland. It was in Cleveland, too. That was the best part. I bet all the Browns fans were so excited to see Johnny Football make his first start, and then it was just the worst. He had like a quarterback rating of like 0.0, something like that. It was actually, I think it was 2.0, though. It was pretty bad. Anyway, I'm sorry I went off on a tangent about Johnny Football. I just couldn't help. That was such a sweet Bengals moment. Anyway, getting back to the drive, 3rd and 9, Falcons have the ball at Cincinnati's 9-yard line. Number 93, Jeff Gunter, and number 56, Raymond Johnson III, the two defensive ends, come in and sandwich Heineke for the sack. They get half a sack each. That was a good play. I was only scared because sometimes you see when defensive ends meet at the quarterback, those are big, powerful, explosive guys hitting each other in opposite directions. So we have seen neck injuries and serious injuries on similar plays in the past like that. And luckily, nothing like that happened on this play. Atlanta eventually settles for a 36-yard field goal by Younghoe Koo. This is the first score of the game with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. Field goal makes it Cincinnati 0, Atlanta 3. On the ensuing kickoff, number 25 running back Chris Evans takes the ball for the Bengals and gets a long 35-yard kick return, and then he gets tackled by the kicker, Younghoe Koo, at the 37-yard line, which was a little bit surprising because it's like, what is Younghoe Koo doing all the way down there making tackles? But there he was. And then Chris Evans got tackled by, that's a bad feeling if you're the returner and you get tackled in the open field by the kicker. That's the guy that the Bengals are intentionally not blocking. That's the game plan, is we're not going to block the kicker. The kick returner should be able to get away from the kicker. In this instance, he wasn't. So we would like to see Chris Evans be able to elude the kicker, but it's still 35 yards. It's 35 yards, so we'll take it. On this drive, we see a good run by number 30 rookie Chase Brown. He shows nice balance, and he's able to get kind of a spin move off of a guy, and he reads his blocking. He's able to pick up 10 yards and a first down. On 3rd down, the Falcons bring a blitz. Simeon throws out to the right, seemingly to pretty much nobody. Yo-See-Vosh was kind of there, but he wasn't looking. He was like 10 yards down the field, so it seemed like it should have been intentional grounding. Maybe the referees were being kind of generous, like giving him the benefit of the doubt there. It looked like it was intentional grounding to me. There was nobody even anywhere remotely close to that, so that was kind of a miscue by Simeon. Still, incomplete is better than an interception or a fumble, so Bengals are able to punt and at least flip the field in terms of field position. Atlanta gets the ball back, and I thought Joseph Ossai, number 58, had another sack, but somehow Atlanta's quarterback, Taylor Heineke, was able to get away and outrun Ossai and number 59, Akeem Davis-Gaither, the Bengals linebacker, and gets a first down. I didn't know Heineke had that kind of speed, or maybe I forgot, but he's probably a better athlete than a lot of people give him credit for. To be able to outrun Joseph Ossai and Akeem Davis-Gaither to the edge is pretty impressive for anybody, much less a quarterback. On this drive, number 56 defensive end Raymond Johnson III gets a couple pressures on Heineke to force early, inaccurate throws. Johnson also had the strip sack in last week's preseason game. Interesting on this drive, 4th and 5 at Cincinnati's 47. The Falcons opt to go for it. They probably wouldn't do that in the regular season. Maybe they were just trying to get more experience 4th down with their players, but they ended up not getting it. It's incomplete. So Cincinnati gets the ball back with a little bit of time left before halftime. On the drive, started off with a couple incompletions, and then Simeon hit number 15 wide receiver Charlie Jones on the deep out from the left slot. So Simeon had plenty of time to throw, hit his back foot on time, and it was from the opposite hash. So the Bengals had the ball on the right hash, and Simeon was throwing all the way across the field to the left sideline. So it's a long throw. This is a pro quarterback throw. I don't know if Jake Browning can make this type of throw, honestly, but Simeon makes it look easy. And Charlie Jones does a good job of getting separation from his defender to make the throw even easier for Simeon. 1st and 10 at Atlanta 42, slant route from the left to Yo-See-Vosh, and the slant route seems like his bread and butter route so far. It's a pretty basic route, but he's hit quite a few of these. This time he is able to get upfield and gain yards instead of trying to go backward and break tackles, and he's just getting upfield and getting whatever yards he can. Bengals aren't able to get into the end zone, so they end up opting for a 50-yard field goal from number 2, Evan McPherson, the place kicker. Long snap from Cal Adamitis, and Brad Robbins, the punter, was also the holder on the 50-yarder. This kick was not only dead straight down the middle, but it hit the net halfway up. It looked like it would have been good from at least 60, probably good from 65. Going into halftime, that makes the score Cincinnati 3, Atlanta 3. So after halftime, Bengals receive the opening kick. 2nd and 8 at the Cincinnati 27. Jake Browning starts the second half. Pass out to the right to Shedrick Jackson. Picks up 26 yards. However, penalty, offensive pass interference on Charlie Jones. He basically did a pick play. If you know in basketball, Charlie Jones basically set a pick on Shedrick Jackson's guy. So that's illegal. That's a penalty. So play is called back. That's one of those plays for Charlie Jones where he has to do a better job of selling like he's actually trying to run a route. He was too obvious in the way he just ran up and blocked the guy instead of trying to make it look like you're running a route and then, oh, whoops, I just happened to run into you. In football, they don't call it a pick. They call it a rub play. So it's more of a subtle pick. You just happen to rub into the guy. You didn't intentionally pick him. A couple more plays. Number 6, Jake Browning throws out to number 12. Again, wide receiver Shedrick Jackson for the first down. Decent throw. It's a little bit behind Jackson, but he's able to turn upfield and get the yards that he needs for the first down. Jackson had some good separation, again, to make the throw easier for the quarterback. 1st and 10 at the Cincinnati 36. We have a run play for -1 yards. The left guard, number 60, Jackson Kirkland, just gets completely ragdolled and thrown out of the way by the Atlanta interior defensive lineman for the tackle for loss. Jackson Kirkland also had a penalty later for ineligible man downfield on a pass play, so he's not really putting a whole lot of good reps on tape between last week and this week. He didn't look too great last week either. After the penalty, Browning tries to go to number 80, Yo-See-Vosh, in the end zone one-on-one, but this pass also falls incomplete. It's kind of underthrown, and it hits the Atlanta cornerback in the back of the head. I think a quarterback's coach or somebody who's sympathetic to quarterback like Zach Taylor is going to say that, oh, the receiver Yo-See-Vosh has to help the quarterback and fight back through the cornerback and get defensive pass interference so that even if the pass is bad, you'll get a penalty. I would say the quarterback should throw a better pass up high where the 6'3" guy can jump up and get it instead of throwing a low line drive into this 5'10" cornerback's head. But that's just me as a former receiver talking. Bengals have to settle for a 31-yard field goal with Drew Chrisman holding this time. So that's back-to-back field goals to end the first half and then open the second half. Cincinnati 6, Atlanta 3. On Atlanta's ensuing drive, quarterback Taylor Heineke pretty much picks apart the Bengals' backup secondary all the way down the field. I think he had 4 or 5 completions on this drive. They ended up with a short touchdown run, so that put Atlanta back up on top. Cincinnati 6, Atlanta 10. Cincinnati gets the ball back after the touchdown. On the ensuing drive, Charlie Jones catches a couple passes for first downs after an illegal formation penalty. And then we see Jackson Carman, number 79, the left tackle. gets a holding penalty where he basically grabs a guy and tackles him and then lays on top of him. So not great technique by Jackson Carman. I mean, you want to get the guy on the ground, but you don't want to just tackle him. After that holding penalty, we see Shedrick Jackson, number 12, make a tough catch on a nice ball from Jake Browning to the right side. Jackson goes up and high points the ball in the air before the defender can get a hand on it, and he brings it down in traffic. He lands hard on the ground but hangs on. Defender's trying to rip the ball away the whole time, but it's a great catch. I thought it was a great play. Shedrick Jackson is really impressing me. He's an undrafted rookie. I know he's, Bo Jackson's nephew, so he's got the genes, but I really wasn't expecting that much out of him. He's showing me a lot. I think he caught all 4 of his official targets in this game, and he had at least the one that was called back for the offensive pass interference on Charlie Jones. He had another one where he drew a defensive pass interference that was a target that didn't count, but it was defensive pass interference. So it was a good play all around for him, except for the one illegal formation penalty that he had just a few plays earlier. That takes us to the fourth quarter. Still Cincinnati 6, Atlanta 10. The Bengals had the ball at the Falcons 28 on 2nd and 3. This is some kind of weird busted play that it looked like it was supposed to be a screen because all the offensive linemen immediately stopped blocking and just let their guys go, and looked like they were going to run out for a screen pass. But then Jake Browning just got tackled by all the defensive linemen that ran up the field, and he didn't throw it to anybody. So I don't know who he was looking to throw it to. It didn't really look like anybody was open necessarily, but that was just a bad play all around. On this drive, I noticed number 61, Cody Ford, is lining up at right tackle, and he's giving up pressure pretty much this whole drive. Bengals drive ends on turnover on downs after they failed to convert on 4th down with 13:11 left in the fourth quarter. Falcons get the ball back, 6 plays, turnover on downs, same thing. Don't convert on 4th down. So it seems like both teams are just trying to practice 4th downs or short yardage situations and not really trying to stress out their special teams units that much. Bengals get the ball and they go 3 and out after 2 off-target passes from Browning and a short run. I know that the quarterbacks want to keep the ball outside towards the sidelines, like keep the ball away from the numbers, keep it more towards the sidelines so that the safeties can't come over and intercept it. But it is almost impossible to complete a pass if you throw it 5 or more yards out of bounds, which is what Browning did on both of these passes. You have to give your receiver at least some chance to catch the ball. You can't just throw the ball way out of bounds. Atlanta gets the ball back. Logan Woodside replaces Taylor Heineke at quarterback for the Falcons, and they go 3 and out. So there's 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. On the Bengals drive, they try another screen pass that goes even worse. It gets -4 yards to Andre Yo-See-Vosh. The screen game is not working for the Bengals at all in the preseason. I don't know if maybe defenses are picking up on the fact that they're not doing any play action plays. So if the quarterback doesn't hand the ball off, they know that it's either a pass or a screen. So somehow they're able to diagnose exactly what's going on the screens. Nobody's falling for the screen at all. After that weird screen, we see quarterback number 6, Jake Browning, rolling out to his left. He got a little bit of pressure, but I mean, these offensive linemen are the third string backup offensive linemen at the game at this point. So none of the protection is really that stellar, I wouldn't say, for anybody, for either team. But Browning rolls out to his left, and he just cannot make this throw. It seems like he gets tunnel vision on Charlie Jones, the receiver, coming across the middle of the field. But there's already Yo-See-Vosh and I want to say maybe Asiasi, the tight end, on the sideline, on the left sideline. So they're already kind of as far left as they can go, and they've got their defender standing right next to them. Browning is scrambling to the left, so he's throwing across his body to the right. He basically throws it straight into the Falcons linebacker's arms. It was an easy interception. There's no way Browning should have thrown that ball. He's got to see that guy. He's standing 20 feet in front of him, and he throws it right at him. So just a horrible throw by Browning. He's got to realize that he can't make that throw in that situation. Luckily for the Bengals, the Falcons aren't able to do anything with that possession. They go 3-and-out. Actually, Logan Woodside got sacked by Owen Carney he took like an 8-yard sack that pushed them all the way out of field goal position, so they had to punt back to the Bengals. Bengals get the ball back, and Jake Browning, the quarterback, partially redeems himself for the interception on the previous drive by scrambling around and picking up good yardage on a couple of plays. He got like a 19-yard run and a 13-yard run. Kind of what this is coming from is because it's getting late in the game, and the Falcons have been playing a lot of man-to-man coverage, meaning their defensive backs and their linebackers are covering the receivers down the field. So they're having to turn their backs on the quarterback and run a lot. So they're getting fatigued, and they're not really looking at what's going on in the backfield. Since the Falcons defensive linemen are also getting tired, they're not able to chase down Jake Browning. So he's able to get out of the pocket. I really, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I'm saying, oh, Jake Browning, throw it. You got to throw the ball. You're a quarterback. You got to make NFL throws here. But then we just saw what happened when he did throw it. It was an interception. So I was like, maybe if you got to run, you got to do what you got to do out there, Jake Browning. Who am I to say throw the ball, After that, we saw an 18-yard back shoulder fade to number 80, Yo-See-Vosh again. He boxes out the cornerback for Atlanta and makes kind of a basketball rebound catch. That brings up 1st and goal, and then we see Chase Brown, the rookie from Illinois, get his first NFL rushing touchdown. Just a kind of a short dive up the middle. He lowers his shoulder into the linebacker and gets the ball across the goal line for the touchdown. That touchdown and extra point by McPherson put the Bengals back on top 13-10. However, Logan Woodside, the quarterback for Atlanta, leads them down the field on a couple long passes, gets them in position for a 45-yard field goal by Younghoe Koo, which he, of course, makes, and the game ends tied, Cincinnati 13, Atlanta 13. So that was the end of the game. It wasn't really the ending that we wanted. It wasn't really as exciting a game as we had hoped for. 13-13 tie with not a whole lot of scoring and tons of penalties. It was not exactly a barn burner, you wouldn't say. Let's take a quick look at some of the stats over on ESPN.com. We're getting the box score and stats and information. The first thing that jumped out to me was if you look at the Cincinnati rushing, outside of Jake Browning, the two running backs, Chris Evans and Chase Brown, combined for 16 carries for 33 yards. So that's basically 2 yards per carry. I know that the backup offensive line is in there and they're not able to make really any ground, but so far I don't have a ton of confidence in the Bengals running game. It looks like they're trying to do what they did all of last year, which is 11 personnel, meaning 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers almost every play. And sometimes they're going 4 wide or empty where there's nobody standing next to the quarterback, and they're really trying to spread out the defense across the field. But you still would like to see some kind of a running game. Like, there's not even the threat of a running game right now to keep the defense honest, at least. So that makes it so much harder to pass if the defense isn't even worried about the run. We saw receiver Andre Yo-See-Vosh from Princeton get another 10 targets this week, same amount he had last week. Charlie Jones got 4 catches for 36 yards on 6 targets, so a little bit more active this week for Charlie Jones. I also mentioned Shedrick Jackson had 4 catches on 4 targets for 42 yards. Looking at the receiving, the long was only 18. The longest pass that either quarterback completed was 18 yards. Neither one did great. Jake Browning, 16 of 22, 144 yards, and that interception also had a sack. Trevor Siemian, 7 of 14, 62 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns, no sacks. Pretty clean box score for Trevor Siemian, but also nothing really to get excited about. I think that pass to Trenton Irwin was a good pass. If he would have completed that one, it would have given him another 30 or 40 yards and a touchdown. His stats would have looked a lot better, obviously. So he didn't make a huge mistake, but there's also not a lot of athletic upside. Trevor Siemian didn't have any rushing yards. Jake Browning had a little bit of scrambling ability, you could say. So he's got that. Jake Browning's less of a passer than Siemian, but he's at least got a little mobility. Raymond Johnson III had 2 QB hits, half a sack, 5 total tackles. I honestly forgot that Jonah Williams played right tackle in this game at all, so that's actually good. I think he got like 15 or 16 snaps, maybe less, but I never heard Jonah Williams' name called, and if you're an offensive lineman, no news is good news. If your name is getting called, like if they're calling Jackson Carman or Jackson Kirkland or any of these guys for penalties or holding or all this stuff, you want to have a nice quiet day. That means you didn't give up any sacks, you didn't have any holding penalties, no false start, no stupid mistakes. So must have been a good day for Jonah Williams. So I know I said last week that the preseason games can still be exciting and entertaining, but this was probably one of the worst games I've seen in a long time. No juice at all in this game. Penalties, sloppy play, bad offense, not really anything to get excited about. And you could tell even the fans in the stands had left by halftime. The stands were completely empty by the end of the game. Nobody was there, so nobody really cared about this game. After the game, we didn't get too much in the post-game press conferences or interviews. Everybody was kind of a little bit confused and didn't know how to feel. How do you feel after a preseason tie? Whatever. Let's just get back on the plane and go home. So that's kind of what the mood and the atmosphere was like around the team. We'll get ready for next week and preseason game 3 when the Bengals go to Washington to take on the Commanders. And that's all we have for episode 3 of Bengal Bites. Remember to subscribe, turn on your notifications, give us a 5-star rating if you like the show. If you don't like the show, don't give us a rating at all. Just move along, buddy. Nothing to see here. Anyway, send me the feedback on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you can send me the feedback. I'm on all those different things. I want to engage with you, the audience, to make the show better. So let me know what I'm doing right. Let me know what I'm not doing right, how I can improve, all that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the show. That's all for episode 3. Catch us next time when we do the preseason game 3 recap. Thanks for listening, and I'll leave you with a hoo day and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.